Cardiologists warn, 7 early signs of heart failure, you ignore daily. Honestly, I don't want you to end up in this situation, not even for a moment, but if you have a history of heart problems, or if you're over 60 and genuinely care about your own health and the people around you, then this video is for you. And yes, anyone with a known heart condition would never ignore a title like this. But why should older adults pay special attention? Because here in the United States, cardiovascular disease is still the #1 cause of death. Recent national reports show that 48.6% of American adults are living with some form of cardiovascular disease, whether it's high blood pressure, coronary artery issues, stroke, or early-stage heart failure. Among people over 65, the risk climbs even higher, and research shows that once heart failure develops, it can shorten life expectancy by 7 to 15 years compared with others the same age who don't have the condition. If these early signs go unnoticed, the consequences can be severe: repeated hospital visits, a dramatic drop in energy and independence, and a much greater chance that small, manageable symptoms turn into life-threatening emergencies. That's exactly why I've poured real time, effort, and heart into creating this video. So I hope you'll support me with a quick subscribe, and now, without waiting any longer, let's get into the very first symptom. 1. Shortness of breath during simple tasks. Most people don't know this, but back in the 1950s, cardiologists discovered something strange while observing coal workers. Men who were perfectly strong still found themselves gasping for air when climbing just a single flight of stairs, long before any chest pain ever showed up. That same early pattern now appears quietly in older Americans at home, especially when you start losing your breath during simple tasks like bending to pick up laundry or carrying a gallon of milk from the fridge to the counter. It creeps in without drama. You start needing to pause just for a second, yet that second grows longer each week. The real reason this happens is because the heart isn't pushing blood efficiently enough, causing a subtle backup of fluid in the lungs, and the body responds by forcing you to breathe faster to make up the difference. It shows up in minutes, not hours. Most people feel the breathlessness within the first 30 to 60 seconds of mild movement, even if they insist they're fine. And when the lungs start holding even a little extra fluid, less than the volume of a half-cup measuring cup, you can feel as if the air around you suddenly turned heavy. A small but practical trick many cardiology nurses teach older Americans is this: if you want to catch early breathlessness before it becomes dangerous, try reading a short paragraph out loud while walking from the kitchen to the front door. If your voice starts breaking or you can't finish the paragraph without stopping for a breath, that's often an earlier sign than any medical device will give you. And here's the part that often shocks people: breathlessness from heart issues usually improves when you sit upright but strangely feels worse when you bend forward, because the pressure shifts toward the lungs. So if you've been finding yourself avoiding small tasks simply because your breath hasn't caught up yet, your heart may already be struggling more than you've admitted. But then again, if breathlessness is the invisible warning inside your chest, what do you make of the quiet, gradual swelling that rises along your skin like a slow tide, soft, shiny, and oddly hard to ignore once you finally look at it? 2. Swollen ankles or feet. There's a fascinating old-school fact from early heart research. Doctors used to test leg swelling by pressing a thumb into the ankle for 5 full seconds, and timing how long the dent stayed. If it lasted longer than the time it took to boil 2 tablespoons of water in a small metal cup over a flame, they suspected early heart failure. Today, we understand that swelling in the ankles or feet comes from fluid pooling because the heart can't keep blood moving against gravity, but the outward sign still tells the same story: your body is storing water where it shouldn't. The telling clue is how the swelling behaves. It often starts late in the evening, then drifts earlier into your day until one morning you wake up and the puffiness is already there, pressing against your socks. If you gently press around the ankle bone and the mark remains longer than the count of 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, it's often the body hinting that the heart is losing ground. And here's a tip many older Americans find surprisingly useful: keep a simple 1/4 teaspoon measuring spoon on your counter. Each morning, tip it gently into the inside arch of your foot. If the skin feels stretched, glossy, or uncomfortably tight against the metal, even before standing for the day, that subtle sensation can reveal fluid retention earlier than visible swelling. What makes this symptom particularly important is its predictability. Swelling rarely appears randomly. It builds, layer by layer, like water behind a dam, especially during weeks when you've been sitting longer, sleeping less, or feeling unusually fatigued. Ignoring it doesn't make it disappear, it simply makes the next sign louder. And while you can brush off breathlessness, swelling is different. It's right there, staring back at you, proof on the outside of a struggle happening on the inside. But if swelling is the body's visible whisper for help, then what does it mean when your energy itself begins to drain away, leaving you exhausted even before your day has properly begun, heavy, slow, and sinking deeper than ordinary tiredness? 3. Persistent fatigue. Here's a surprising piece of medical history. Before modern scanners existed, doctors would test heart-related fatigue by asking people to lift a cast-iron skillet with one hand and hold it for 10 seconds. Those with early heart issues often felt their arm trembling by the 7th second, not because their muscles were weak, but because their heart wasn't delivering enough oxygen to keep the muscle steady. That same kind of deep, dragging exhaustion shows up in older Americans today in far quieter ways. You might wake up already tired, feel drained halfway through folding laundry, or need to rest after showering because somehow the steam and movement took more out of you than expected. This kind of fatigue doesn't behave like normal aging. It appears earlier in the day, lingers even after rest, and often comes with a strange mental fog, as if someone dimmed the lights inside your mind. And because it builds slowly, people often explain it away for months. But the truth is simple. When the heart can't send enough oxygen to the brain and muscles, the body forces you to conserve energy. Here's a surprisingly effective household tip many cardiologists quietly recommend: keep a 1-cup measuring cup filled with water by your bedside. Each morning, lift it with your arm extended. If your arm shakes, burns, or tires before you reach the slow count of 6, that's often an early functional sign that oxygen delivery is lagging. Fatigue tied to the heart becomes especially telling when paired with unusual heaviness, your clothes feeling tighter, your belly feeling fuller, or the number on the scale climbing for reasons you can't explain. And the longer this fatigue stays, the more it connects to the next early sign, one that doesn't creep, but rather appears, suddenly and unexpectedly, as if your body has gained weight overnight, dense and uncomfortable in ways that have nothing to do with food. So if fatigue has already become your uninvited companion, what should you think when your body begins adding a strange, sudden heaviness that feels thicker, tighter, and unmistakably out of place? 4. Rapid weight gain. One of the lesser-known truths about heart function is that even a small shift in fluid, less than what fits inside a standard half-pint mason jar, can show up as multiple pounds on the scale in just a day or two. That's why rapid weight gain is one of the most alarming early signs. It's not fat, it's trapped fluid, and it happens because the heart can't push blood effectively enough to keep pressure stable. You can feel it in subtle ways at first: your rings fitting tighter, your waistband digging in, your face looking slightly puffier in the mirror even though your diet hasn't changed at all. For many older Americans, the first clue comes from something as simple as realizing their slippers suddenly feel snug. A small but powerful home trick involves your kitchen scale. Weigh a single cup of water, it's exactly 8 ounces, then remember how light that feels in your hand. If your body suddenly adds the equivalent of 2 or 3 of those cups within 24 hours, without food or lifestyle changes, it's almost always fluid accumulation. This kind of gain often comes with a tightness around the abdomen, a sense of heaviness when bending forward, or the odd sensation that lying flat makes breathing slightly harder. And while stepping on the scale isn't fun, it's one of the earliest ways to catch trouble before it becomes an emergency. A sudden jump is your body practically shouting that pressure inside the circulatory system is rising. The sooner you notice it, the sooner you can act. And this is where everything starts tying together. Fluid gain leads to nighttime coughing, difficulty lying flat, changes in your heartbeat, and a shrinking tolerance for activity. Yet the next signal is often the one people misunderstand the most: not something you see or measure, but something you feel inside your chest, like a restless rhythm that refuses to settle. So if rapid weight gain sends its warning through heaviness, what happens when that warning shifts into a sensation that flickers, flutters, and stirs from deep within? 5. Nighttime cough or trouble lying flat. Most people never hear this story, but early cardiac researchers at Johns Hopkins in the 1960s used to test hidden lung fluid by having a person lie flat on a wooden exam table for exactly 30 seconds. If the person began coughing before the half-minute passed, the doctor suspected the heart wasn't keeping up with nighttime pressure. The same phenomenon appears today in older Americans at home. You settle into bed, you're ready to rest, but the moment you lie flat your chest feels strangely crowded, and a dry, nagging cough starts creeping up like an unwanted visitor. You prop up an extra pillow. Then another. And eventually you find yourself half-sitting just to breathe comfortably. This isn't allergies, and it's rarely the AC being too cold. What's happening is remarkably simple. When the heart weakens, fluid shifts more easily toward the lungs when the body is horizontal, causing the tiny airways to tighten and tickle until you're forced to cough. For many people, this odd night cough shows up long before they ever experience daytime breathlessness. A surprisingly effective home clue older Americans use involves the standard 9x13-inch baking pan. If lying back feels like someone placed that pan, full of invisible weight, across your chest, that heaviness is often an early sign of fluid redistribution. And here's a household trick that cardiology nurses often whisper to families: if you find yourself needing more than 2 pillows to sleep comfortably, stack them beside your bed during the day. If the stack keeps getting taller over the weeks, something deeper is progressing, no matter how much you want to tell yourself it's just sinuses. The nighttime cough always carries a message. Your body handles gravity differently when your heart is strained, and the more you ignore it, the louder the next signal becomes, your heartbeat itself starting to misfire, flutter, or thump in ways you've never felt before. So if the night is already nudging you awake with that scratchy, unsettled feeling in your chest, what does it mean when your own heartbeat begins sending sharp, restless ripples through your ribcage? 6. Heart racing or irregular beats. Here's a fascinating fact almost nobody knows. Long before wearable heart monitors existed, researchers used ceramic coffee mugs to detect irregular beats. If the mug rattled on the table every few minutes, caused by subtle chest vibrations, the doctors suspected early rhythm problems. That same jittery, unpredictable sensation is what many older Americans feel today. Your heart suddenly kicks, flutters, or races as if it's trying to outrun something you can't see. It might last only a few seconds or stretch into minutes, and the strangest part is how it often appears during quiet moments, watching TV, reading, or lying in bed. When the heart struggles to pump efficiently, the electrical system tries to compensate by firing faster, harder, or in messy patterns. Some people describe it as a bird trapped in their chest. Others say it feels like their heartbeat is skipping up the steps 2 at a time. And while it's tempting to blame caffeine or nerves, the truth is that the heart is one of the few organs that talks back in real time when it's under strain. A small but surprisingly clever home technique involves the kitchen timer. Place your hand against your chest and count your heartbeats for 15 seconds, then multiply by 4. If the number jumps more than 20 beats when you repeat the check a minute later, without moving or stressing, that variability is often an early sign of rhythm instability. Another tip older Americans use is placing a wooden spoon handle gently against the sternum. If you can feel the tapping through the wood, the force of the heartbeat is stronger than normal, often signaling that the heart is pushing against pressure it can't quite overcome. And once rhythm changes settle in, they rarely stay alone. They often appear just before another early sign. You slowly lose the ability to tolerate activity that used to feel manageable, as if your body is quietly shrinking the world you can move around in. So if your heartbeat is already shifting into a restless, jittery pattern, what does it mean when even a short walk begins to feel heavier, slower, and strangely more draining than it used to? 7. Decreased exercise tolerance. There's an intriguing fact from old military fitness testing. Decades ago, examiners noticed that soldiers developing early cardiac issues couldn't complete a simple yardstick test, walking 10 yards while breathing easily, long before any pain or dramatic symptoms appeared. That same early warning sign shows up today in older Americans in far subtler ways. You begin noticing that your usual walk to the mailbox now feels longer, that carrying a laundry basket leaves you oddly winded, or that climbing the porch steps requires a pause even though you've done it for years without thinking. This shift doesn't come with fanfare, it sneaks in through comparison. The task is the same, your body's response isn't. What's really happening is that the heart is losing its reserve, the little extra push it normally gives during activity. When that reserve weakens, your muscles tire faster because they're receiving less oxygen with every beat. A useful but little-known home method involves using a standard kitchen tablespoon. Place it flat on your thigh after a short walk. If your thigh pulses strongly enough to make the spoon tremble or rock, that's often a sign that the heart is pushing harder than it should for such a small effort. Another tip some older Americans swear by is timing how long it takes to walk from the kitchen sink to the mailbox while breathing only through the nose. If you feel forced to mouth breathe earlier than usual, your exercise tolerance is dropping, and it often drops weeks before more obvious symptoms appear. The toughest part is admitting the change. Many people mistake this early decline for getting older, but the timeline gives it away. Age changes slowly, heart problems change quickly. When your world starts shrinking, shorter walks, lighter chores, longer rests, that's the heart tugging on the brakes before you even realize you've stopped moving as freely as you once did. And once exercise tolerance slips, the chain of symptoms begins looping back into the others, forming the early picture of a heart working harder than it can afford. So if even your simplest movements now come with that slow, dragging resistance, what will you do with the knowledge that your body has been whispering these clues all along? If you've watched this far, do yourself and someone you love a favor, hit subscribe, like this video, and especially share it. Sharing might be the one action that helps someone catch a deadly warning sign before it's too late. And if there's any topic you want me to break down next, tell me in the comments so I can make exactly what you need. To sum it up, ignoring these early signals doesn't make them disappear, it only gives danger more time to grow in silence. Heart failure rarely arrives overnight, it whispers first. And the people who survive it aren't the ones who are lucky, they're the ones who paid attention early enough to fight back. And while waiting for the next video, go ahead and watch the one I've placed right here on your screen. It'll give you even more tools to protect your health and your future.